Hello everyone, my name is Matt Scorpion and welcome back to Helldivers 2. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I've already seen some of the changes, and personally I'm not a fan of a lot of these changes because it seems like a very Bungie level of, hey, everyone's using these things, that must mean it's meta, so that must mean we need to nerf it into the ground. But, I'm going to get over that. Of course, I'm going to take a break to share some thoughts about the weapon balancing. Again, that's going to be the main thing. After that, I'll get into more fixes and Blum details so you can actually get everything that's important out of the way. So, starting off the top, they made a change to armor with armor ratings above 100. I don't know if that's 101 or 100 and up. But, they have a reduced damage on headshots. So, I imagine with the little bugs as well as just all of the bots, headshots will become a little bit less of a pain. Then, as well, they did make a change that victory poses will not only play for the extracted, no stolen valor on the ships, and burning damage has been reduced by 15%. I imagine that's just so that people on Hellmire can actually have a chance to do everything right. Starting off already, a lot of nerfs to the exploding crossbow. Now, its explosion radius was decreased, so it's slightly smaller now, but has increased stagger. The number of magazines it can hold in reserve was decreased from 12 to 8, so already that's a big hit because it now only has 40 shots as opposed to 60. Increases the number of magazines received from resupply, however, from 6 to 8, so you get 3/4 return on a single resupply. There is a slight reduction in ergonomics. I imagine that means its handling and ready speed is slower. And its muzzle velocity has been increased, but it hasn't been improved. So it travels faster, but doesn't travel far. So that's unfortunate. The fan favorite and really effective Quasar cannon has had a nerf. They don't exactly specify, but I imagine when they say increased recharge time by 5 seconds, I want to say that's the time between shots. Because if the charge time for the shot itself was improved by 5 seconds, I feel like that's bad. Now, I don't think this is as bad as it seems. Because sometimes on the hot planets, it already felt like the cooldown was improved by 5% or 5 seconds. I just hope that on planets like Hellmire, where heat reduction in energy weapons is reduced, and various other places like that, this thing isn't going to be a one shot every 20 seconds sort of thing, because then the Quasar is going to be much less valued compared to stuff like the Recoilless, which can probably reload in about 8 seconds. The Adjudicator, as you can see, is now classified as an auto rifle as opposed to everything else. Full auto is now default. It has reduced recoil. It has increased number of magazines from 6 to 8. The number of magazines resupplied is increased to 8. And like I said, it has been placed among the assault rifles, which makes sense because it didn't really feel like a marksman rifle. Sure, it had a little bit of a longer range scope, but at the same time, it really didn't function like a marksman rifle when most people use it in full auto. The laser cannon got a slight increase to its damage in general. However, it does have slightly reduced damage versus large volume bodies. They don't exactly specify what that means, so I think, in all honesty, it's probably going to be like anti-Hulk capabilities has been reduced. I'm sure if you haven't seen it, pretty much this is a go-to for defenses, or at least automatons for one person, because they can pretty easily take out Hulks. I think that is the area that they were trying to hammer. The Punisher Plasma, oddly enough, considering I used it and it felt like hot garbage, got decreased maximum number of mags from 12 to 8. However, they did increase the amount of magazines received to 8 per resupply. It was given increased projectile speed, but will still keep a similar range, so it's going to fall off very quickly. They also decreased the damage fall off on the explosion, so I imagine it hits harder in an area, but now is placed in the energy weapons category. So yes, it still has a magazine capacity, but it is not a heat-based weapon or a recharge weapon like most of the other energy-based. The Arc 12 Blitzer, which again felt like hot garbage when I used it last, got increased shots per minute from 30 to 45, so it has a quicker fire rate. Now, also in the energy-based category as opposed to the shotgun. However, this honestly felt like it just needed a flat-out either damage buff or arcing buff, because when I used it, even looking at several enemies in front of me, it didn't seem to arc at all. It seemed to only hit one target, and considering it was automatons, yeah, that meant all the rest of them were still shooting at me while I was sitting there waiting for this thing to be able to shoot again, so it doesn't feel like enough. A change that I feel was quite unwarranted considering this is a very much skill weapon to use correctly. The Eruptor had its ammo capacity in reserve reduced by half. So let me put it this way, you only had 5 shots in the mag. You had 12 mags, that was 60 shots. Now it only has 6 mags. So it only has 30 total shots per full restock. That just seems ineffective for literally doing anything except bringing a full auto sidearm and using that for a lot of close quarters, and bringing a machine gun for the big waves, because literally the Eruptor will only be for big target and like utility damage now. As well, its explosive damage drops off slightly faster, meaning it is also worse at crowd control because everything else in the end of the explosion might actually live now as opposed to, you know, dying. As well, the fan favorite Sickle had a decreased amount of heat sinks, so it only has 3 replacement heat sinks in case you overheat it, which, I don't know, it felt like it could be warranted considering how effective the Sickle is, and when you know how to mitigate the heat buildup, you don't use like anything. But in hot drop scenarios where you're shooting this thing non-stop, that will burn quickly, especially on heat planets. The laser beam scythe got a buff, so now it has increased damage from 300 to 350, but again, decreased the number of heat sinks from 6 to 4. Again, that feels pointless reducing its magazine size because although it did get increased damage, this one honestly just felt like it sucked. Again, it might be a skill issue on my part, but the one time I used it, it was highly ineffective and I was constantly shooting damage, constantly resetting the heat sink. So it actually felt like it needed more, if anything, not less. The railgun got increased armor penetration in both safe and unsafe modes, however now doesn't have as much stagger as it was slightly reduced, which makes me think they wanted this to be in place of the Quasar for its longer recharge for quicker fire, but at the same time with reduced stagger, it's not going to be nearly as effective when it comes to punching holes. For the heavy machine gun, they actually did something that seems very warranted. There is now a third-person aiming reticle, so you'll be able to use it without guessing. Then there's buffs to both marksman rifles, the Diligence Counter Sniper and Standard, where the Diligence Counter Sniper has increased damage from 128 to 140, as well as getting improved handling, which sounds nice. But then the basic Diligence just got its damage updated from 112 to 125. But that was it. And marksman rifles are still going to feel at the bottom of effectiveness. The P19 Redeemer has a slight increase in recoil, which, if I'm going to be honest, I use this mostly in single shot when I'm using the Eruptor. Literally, it seems like it already had enough recoil. I was shooting it in one shot, and it seemed like the barrel was still moving at a ridiculous motion. I didn't think it needed more. I think it could have used less, or at least more when you full auto it, not just generically more recoil. As well, though, the basic pistol, the Peacemaker, had a damage buff from 60 to 75, hopefully making it more competitive, since originally these two had the same damage numbers, and using that in semi-automatic was just better than using the Redeemer. The typoed on the Steam Notes, the P8 Senator, according to the Steam Notes, not the P4, now had improved damage from 150 to 175. As well, it does have a speed loader when it is completely out of ammo. If you don't know what that means, it originally loaded 1 bullet at a time like the Punisher. Now when you run completely out, it'll load all 6 bullets in the cylinder all at once, which actually might make it a permanent use, considering I used it more when I needed more bullets as opposed to less. But with a quicker reload, it actually might make it a permanent addition to my just general loadout. Speaking of not permanent, the dagger had increased damage from 150 to 200. However, again, this might still be garbage compared to a recent buff to my favorite sidearm. The basic Liberator, the starting weapon, had a damage buff from 55 per to 65 per, which is not right in-game because, or the patch, actually no, I'm looking at the wrong Liberator. It is 55 to 60, but the Liberator Concussive was improved from 55 to 65. So now the Concussive does more damage per shot in addition to being the, obviously, explosive variant. Now a nerf that didn't feel warranted considering it was just buffed is the Dominator having decreased damage from 300 to 275. Now honestly, I've been enjoying the Dominator heavily against bots, and I've been loving it. Of course, it is a critical base projectile, so decreasing its total damage feels like a punch in the gut, considering sometimes it would still take 8 rounds to kill a Devastator hitting it center mass when you can't hit the head. So less damage, it's going to take only just more bullets. Now, I'm not sure if these are accurate in the patch notes just because one is I'd say is much more of a fan favorite, but according to this, the basic bullet, not the laser guard dog, has decreased damage by 30%, which doesn't sound right based on what I've heard before. Now, already there is changes to the airburst rocket launcher because it seemed very unsafe to use before, but now the rocket launcher will no longer detonate when shot near stratagems, including HMG turrets, sentries, and resupplies, and other Helldivers, also getting a reduced proximity radius. So hopefully this will keep it from, you know, blowing up in people's faces as much as it were, because I'm not even joking, there are some cases where I saw a clear line of sight, and it would just detonate even though it didn't even come close to anything that was more than a rock. Then getting into more stratagems, the basic machine gun sentry is now updated so it has increased health compared to other sentries. Then the Tesla tower as well, once I can find it because I forget where it lives. Let's see, right here. It got increased health by 33%, so it's hopefully to be more of a holdout thing that you can place as either a distraction or otherwise, but they didn't change its damage or its reduced friendly fire, so it's still going to be a bane to teammates. Not sure what it means here, but they added a reload stage reload after spent missile has been discarded. I'm not sure exactly what that means. It might just be that they increased the reload animation time, because yes, I do think I recall there not really being a missile ejection, just although it's hard to say because already it can spit out 4 missiles quite quickly, but at the same time, it only holds 4. Even if it spits it out quickly, it's still a 1, 2, 3. So, hard to say what they actually are doing with the spear instead of just fixing its lock-on. And to cover it in the patch notes, there is more stuff about the airburst, although they don't exactly specify generally what it means. So, here's hoping they actually know what they're talking about. Getting to changes on basic enemies. The Bile Spewer and Nursing Spewer's move speed has been slightly reduced, which makes sense considering they're the fattest thing on the field but kept up with the speediest of them. Hulk's now force required for them to stagger is slightly increased, so I guess it'll be harder for you to stun them with basic weapons fire. As well, the Hulk Scorcher specifically has direct flamethrower damage reduced by 20%. I guess they found it cooked a little bit too much. Now, for the Devastators, their fire rate has been slightly increased, but only for the standard Devastator, thank God, because if the heavies or rocket ones had faster fire rate, that would be unbeatable. The gunship's sideways movement has been slightly increased, but as well, that doesn't seem exactly required. Scout Striders are now less vulnerable to explosions, which seems like a direct nerf from the Eruptor and Crossbow, considering they were my key to getting rid of them easily. Then as well, fog generators, health and armor increased. I'm not sure what a fog generator is, unless it's something that was just added. And as well, gunship spawners now have a much lower capacity on how many gunships they can have active at the same time. I'm supposing they saw clips of 10 gunships active at once and being kind of unbeatable, so yeah, that's a good change. As well, patrol spawning has been increased when there are fewer than 4 players. I'm assuming this is tackling the people who are solo stealthing level 9 difficulty. The fewer the players, the bigger the change. For 4-player missions, there will be no change compared to before. The biggest noticeable change will be solo players at higher difficulty, of course. Now, that is pretty much most of the broad changes, except for some stuff in gameplay that I'll go over really quickly before I start ranting about the weapons changes. They made minor level generation improvements to how we distribute locations throughout the mission map. It should improve variation in distance between objectives, and objectives will likely not spawn as far away from each other as often before. He added settings in the options menu gameplay section to disable automatic climbing and vaulting while sprinting, keeping you from climbing on the resupply pods, hopefully. The Spread Democracy mission, also known as Raise the Flag, can now be enjoyed on higher difficulties for maximum freedom spreading, so hopefully occasionally we'll have just an easier objective every now and again. When readying up, Helldivers can now salute to ensure maximum democratic readiness. Added ambiance to the Tremor planetary hazard to underline the severity so Helldivers can react accordingly. I don't know how you react to that aside from just embracing it. Then, shots that ricochet from heavily armored enemies now properly hit the Helldiver who fired them. Triggered discipline is highly recommended, which I'm not sure what they want from us because I know there has been cases of Devastators where a medium penetration weapon that is meant to kill them has hit spots that it really didn't like, and if that's the case that a random shoulder pad is just classified as a ricochet and I get blown up by my own shot, that honestly seems not a change for better or better detail. That just seems like a change that's going to be a big pain in my ass, considering how many times I have hit a target that it should have penetrated, it just didn't. Now, I will tell you the next bit is going to be lots of fixes, but yeah, honestly, this does very much feel like a Bungie level change based on the popularity and everything else, because of everything that was nerfed, the things that seem like they got hit hardest are the things that people are generally enjoying. Like the Adjudicator, sure, it got a little bit of buffs because it wasn't the biggest enjoyment, I'd say, off of the new Democratic detonation. The Eruptor, everyone's favorite, that got half its ammo and lower AoE damage at far ends. And as well, the freaking, I'm trying to think of what the other one, the Explosive Crossbow. It wasn't completely nerfed, but again, why does it already have less armor, less ammo? It feels like in tense scenarios where there's patrol after patrol or bot drop after bot drop, I already am running out of ammo so quickly. That thing is going to run out of ammo exceedingly fast now, considering the nerfs it has suffered. Plus, why the Sickle? Again, I get that I'm a skilled user when it comes to using the Sickle, and I can mediate the weapon heat to prevent it from constantly needing to exchange the ice, but it's still only 6 originally. In high-risk scenarios, you're constantly feeding new ice if you're not paying attention because you're juggling 1,000 things at once, and that's for somebody who's used to using it. Same thing for the Sickle. No one really uses that. It needed more nerfs or more buffs than nerfs, yet it got a damage buff but has less ice to keep up the damage. Honestly, it doesn't feel exactly appropriate. Now, what I would have been maybe fine with is a little bit increased heat generation or maybe slower fire rate on the Sickle. That might say it's appropriate, but literally just making it so you have less active available emergency reserves, yeah, that doesn't seem exactly worth it. And also, again, why the nerf to the Dominator? That was just taken from 200 to 300. It's working effectively. Sure, it knocks out everything small, but shooting things like Dominator or Devastators, when you don't hit the crits, it's still like 10 rounds already sometimes, it feels. I am just loading them with holes and they're still not going down. A damage nerf means I'm just going to have to shoot them longer and probably die more times with Devastators just because, again, less damage for no reason. It seems like most of these nerfs were because a lot of people have either been saying, hey, this thing is the best now that it got its buff, but not everyone has been using it now. I mean, honestly, I've been seeing way more Breaker Incendiaries, and it's a personal favorite of mine since the last buff against bugs, but I haven't seen anything against that in this patch. Then again, it might not be the most popular, but you get what I'm saying. Some things that definitely feel like they have been ill-effective, including all of the marksman rifles at the time, didn't really get buffs to make them feel relevant. Like, the marksman's rifle, I get that they're doing less per damage shot than the Dominator. Let me say that again. The marksman's rifle, which might have a different crit multiplier, but the marksman rifle is only doing like 140-ish, thinking off the top of my head. The Dominator is doing more than double that per shot. It has double that in the magazine, which, yes, it is a higher skill gap because you have to guess the projectile distance, but regardless, what the hey. Marksman's rifles are heavily neglected in their category. Now, they either need a better marksman rifle or just flat out buff in all ways. Now, getting into the broader crash fixes and things like that. Fixed crashes that could occur when the host abandoned mission with squad. Fixed crash that could occur if a player had tried to enter a occupied Patriot suit. Fixed crash that occur for all players after or during mission result screen. Fixed crash that could occur after shooting from the Patriot exosuit's rocket launcher. Fixed crash that could occur for all players apart from one that rejoined the ongoing mission with a different armor and got reinforced. Fixed superior packaging methodology should now work properly. Fixed blast absorption ship modules so that it correctly increases sentry's distance to explosions, which I noticed that wasn't working. Fixed issue where players could not navigate to the search results in the social menu. Fixed issues where items equipped in Warbond were not actually equipped. Fixed an exploit that allowed overly eager Helldivers to use grenades excessively. Fixed issue where kills from orbital barrage did not progress indirect fire exercise order. Fixed issue that allowed traders to try to sabotage extraction shuttle by deploying sentry stratagems below it. Fixed an issue where ion storms incorrectly prevented extraction beacon from deploying. Fixed stratagem beams using incorrect color coding. Fixed an issue where left stick on a controller could not be used to navigate the social menu. Fixed issues where various UI elements were cut off, off-centered, or too close to the edge of the screen on ultra-wide displays. Fixed anti-material rifle facing away from the Helldiver after deploying it. Fixed bug where a player could duplicate rounds by canceling the reload of anti-material rifle at specific time. Fixed bugs where the anti-material rifle would consume an extra magazine after a canceled reload. Fixed a bug where the recoilless rifle would consume an extra shell from the backpack and the reload was canceled just after the shell was inserted, but before the reload was completed. Fixed an issue where the Sickle and Quasar cannon could not shoot through foliage, finally. Fixed several issues where thumbnails would display when scrolling through Armory. Not sure what that means. Fixed issue where automaton gunships sometimes cannot see the player. Oh no. Fixed incorrect collision being left over after destroying automaton bunkers or detector towers with hell bombs. Fixed issue where hell bombs would not deploy on certain missions. Fixed issues where that resulted in Helldivers drowning in deep water upon landing. Fixed issues with Hellpod space optimization made ammo go above capacity. Fixed issues where stalkers became very visible in fog. Mines are now pingable for your team to better coordinate. Receiving friend requests now give the player a pop-up. Improve readability of prompts and hints displayed during tutorial and onboarding. Total experience is now visible in the career tab. Added better support for ultra-wide monitors by fixing the aspect ratio of menus to 16:9 when adding a setting to control the width of the HUD. Keybinds bound to the numpad will no longer reset upon restart. Fixed inconsistent audio when headphones are plugged into the DualSense controller while playing on PC. Playing Rochambeau in front of the ship no longer causes player to fall out of spaces. The anti-material rifle and MG206 heavy machine gun will now trigger hit markers when scoped in. Secondary weapon no longer remains in the ballistic shield ADS position after using a stim with the ballistic shield backpack equipped. Open text chat is now rebindable. Explosive weapons such as the Eruptor, exploding crossbow, grenade pistol will no longer pull players inward from the blast, which is a good thing. Disable the squad invites during the tutorial, which caused an overlap in the UI. Fix primary and secondary weapons overlapping on the character model in the armory. Fixed UI elements during the first boot that are cut off on a 12:19 aspect ratio monitor. Fixed report and block players is now visible in the squad menu. Dead scavengers now stop screaming for help if killed while calling in reinforcements. Not sure what that means. And fixed anti-air cannon showing up as stratagem scramblers and danger warnings. Now, there is some known issues. That is a lot there. There is quite a lot, and I've already actually mentioned a lot, so if you want to know the known issues, go ahead and just check the Steam page or the Arrowhead site when they officially update it. Just literally search up Helldivers patch notes, and you can find that. But like I said, it hasn't been out. But, you know, I digress. Again, a lot of these nerfs felt like it was a nerf hammer, while others feel like they got nerfed for no reason. Again, this feels like a Bungie level nerf where everyone was having fun with these new weapons, and they said, no fun. They have to be moderately effective, not incredibly effective when you get to know them. Which I say because I started using the Eruptor on some level 7s with randos. Completely ill communication. And I was dancing with a sniper rifle. I felt like I was quickscoping so much. But like I said, sometimes skill makes things really effective, but most players might not have that skill, so I don't know. The Eruptor feels like it might be at the base of things now ignored because you have so little ammo for them. That's why I don't touch the Scorcher. It shreds ammo way too quickly. And now the Eruptor might become something similar. I'd much rather just stick with Dominators instead of the other thing. But like I said, they got nerfed, I feel like, unexpectedly, considering it got a 50% damage buff the last patch and now is already being pulled back from. But, you know, I'll let Arrowhead do what they're doing. Hopefully they release other stuff soon that it can be played with well. Like I said, I am liking the fact that they already made changes to the airburst rocket launcher since it seemed like that was going to be non-usable. But, you know, I'm rambling now. I'm just going to go ahead and say, my name is Matt Scorpion. I thank you for watching.